Nikkei Asia News Roundup
with Jada and Brian. Welcome to the Nikkei Asia News Roundup with your hosts, Jada and Brian.
bringing you the latest updates and insights on the dynamic world of Asia and more.
Now let's delve into the headlines. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.
A viral trend of using generative artificial intelligence to turn photos into illustrations in the style of Japan's beloved Studio Ghibli has fueled anger from artists and arguments over whether art styles should be protected by copyright.
Trump's tariffs have revived calls for ASEAN to boost internal trade to mitigate geopolitical risks. But hurdles like surging non-tariff barriers have limited the full potential of regional integration.
Inner Mongolia Yili Industrial Group, China's largest dairy producer, is looking to provide eligible expectant couples with 1,600 yuan, or roughly $219 each, building relationships with potential customers for its infant formulas even before their babies are born.
Philippine retailer SM Group is accelerating Alphamart convenience store openings, with plans to add 200 stores in Luzon this year alone, aiming to challenge local leader 7-Eleven.
Bangladesh is preparing its first ever smaller budget for the fiscal year starting in July after consistently falling short on budget utilization as the International Monetary Fund team in Dhaka scrutinizes public sector finances.
Concerns over travel safety in Thailand after a recent earthquake have hit the country's core tourism sector, clouding the government's target of returning to the pre-COVID level of international visitors this year, industry officials say. Now moving on to the next segment.
India's small businesses count cost of earlier summers. India recorded its hottest February since records began, with a mean temperature of 22.04 degrees Celsius, about 1.3 degrees higher than the usual average for the month. And while March didn't smash records, the average temperature was nonetheless 0.82 degrees above normal, with heat waves in the west and center of the country. This year is no outlier. Since 2015, India has seen a number of winter temperature anomalies, and these have trended up by 0.73 degrees over the past 100 years. While agriculture remains the hardest hit sector, rising temperatures are now also disrupting small and mid-sized businesses, which employ over 80 million people and are considered the backbone of the economy, as increased heat shifts consumer preferences and affects working conditions. Several manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers across Delhi, Punjab, Gujarat, and West Bengal said changing weather patterns are disrupting traditional sales cycles, with at least some forced to cut staff as a result. Studies show that extreme heat is already taking a toll on India's economy, labor productivity, and health. Between 2001 and 2020, the country lost 259 billion labor hours annually due to heat stress, according to U.S. researchers. Meanwhile, the International Labor Organization estimates that by 2030, India will lose 5.8% of its total working hours, equivalent to 34 million full-time jobs.
China authorities rush to improve conditions for delivery workers. China is pushing delivery platforms to ensure better working conditions for drivers, with local and national authorities urging action to address widespread concerns about safety and compensation. The Ministry of Human Resources and Social Security announced in January that it would strengthen oversight of drivers delivering products ordered online, emphasizing that it would protect their legitimate rights and interests. The concern is that while services that allow people to easily order food deliveries or products via smartphone apps have become part of daily life in China, the delivery workers who allow these services to exist remain in a weak position. The top two food delivery platforms in China, Meituan and Alibaba Group's Ele.me, together have more than 11 million drivers, many of whom have likely struggled to find regular full-time employment. Their pay is determined by the number of deliveries, which leads some to take risks in order to save time, such as riding their motorcycles on the sidewalk. Though this is not China's first attempt to improve working conditions for delivery drivers, its efforts have not kept up with the speed at which the market has expanded.
And now for news highlights. In each episode, Jada and I have a discussion about a recent article or articles that have particularly captured our attention.
And today we're going to talk about Vietnam's major state restructuring. We have a couple of stories on that recently, and it kind of is written from two different points of views, I think. One, the positive side of this state restructuring, and then two, maybe not so positive.
Yeah, that not so positive one was It opens with a very enticing lead, where it compares what's going on and planned in Vietnam to what is happening right now in the United States with the Department of Government Efficiency.
Headed by
Elon Musk, or also known as DOGE,
Yeah.
which has been doing some very headline-grabbing cuts to the federal government in the United States. Now, what's going on in Vietnam and what's being planned in Vietnam is a little different and very complicated.
Yeah.
And these articles, I highly recommend reading these articles because they do a good job of distilling what's happening with graphs and bullet points.
Yeah.
And we'll do our best to explain what's going on here.
Yes. The opening you mentioned, it's about civil servants in Vietnam and how the state restructuring encompasses that, well, they're losing their jobs, basically. Their jobs are being cut. So there's a couple of quotes, saying, I'm scared of when I'll be let go, etc. And it's a major drive by the party secretary general,
who is the person in charge of Vietnam, essentially.
Yes, Mr. To Lam.
To Lam, who came into power. Vietnam's power structure is a little also complicated, but he's essentially the person in charge now that one person in that group died last year.
Yes.
And another person's been...
Secretary General. The article says that in about the last 8 months, To Lam has really consolidated his power, and therefore this state restructuring has really accelerated in the past few months.
And there are some very ambitious things going on. You said the civil servants. There's a stat in here, 7.9% of all Vietnamese employees are in the public sector, which is high for Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
And they're planning to cut somewhere like 100,000 positions, then a further 700,000 by 2030.
Oh, yeah. It says at least 20% of civil servant jobs will be eliminated in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people who are having civil servant jobs, they went in because it's considered stable. It's not really a high-paying job, but the stability was worth it. But now a lot of people who are civil servants, mostly older people, older generation, are seeing or are, waiting for their jobs to be eliminated.
Yeah, because the pay is... It's considered a stable job, but the pay is low.
Yes.
And one of the arguments is that this is an interesting piece of logic, sorry to interrupt myself there, but is that if we eliminate some of these public sector jobs, we can pay the people that are still there a bit more, and that will help eliminate corruption.
Yeah, corruption's a big topic. To Lam has really pushed to get rid of corruption.
And one of the angles there also is, this is the other aspect I find fascinating, is that There are currently 3 divisions in Vietnam. There's the provincial level, there's the district level, and then there's the commune level. So that's like the top one is provinces and a couple special cities. And then there's the district level, which is cities and towns and urban areas. And then there's the commune, which is wards and townships. The plan is to get rid of that middle one, the district one, because To Lam says it's obsolete, it's outdated. And that's a lot of redundant administrations, paperwork, people working those jobs. And the argument is that if we get rid of that, it will streamline everything. And that leads to the angle of bringing in more foreign investment.
Yes.
Because one of the complaints people have, even though Vietnam's economy is growing really well, business is doing really well, it's complicated for people to get started in business or imports and various other things like that. There's one example of somebody saying like the stack of papers for all the approvals required for importing his business was a meter high. And so there's a hope there that eliminating some of this will make it easier for people to get into business in Vietnam because they're afraid of falling into what's called the middle income trap.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that's happened to a lot of developing countries where they reach a certain amount of personal income and it hits a ceiling. And people have wondered what's going on there. And it looks like To Lam's trying to do something to get over that.
Yeah, because I think To Lam has said that the goal for the country is to become a high-income nation by 2045. One of the main drives was that you mentioned provincial level governments, but they're going to be consolidated into 34 from 63. So that includes major cities like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh.
Yeah, I said, districts are going to be eliminated entirely, but also, the provincial level, that top level, is going to be consolidated.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things I never thought about was that with fewer prefectural borders, more provinces will have direct access to sea, and that will improve economic growth, including like seafood farming, boost tourism at sea, and this could bring more investments in as well, because when investors want to choose between 2 neighboring, areas, provinces, he will choose the one with a harbor for better access to export is the logic behind that, which is stated in the article.
And the second article we talked about, the one that's a little more positive, that was written just after it was approved by legislature. Parts of this reform were officially approved by Resolution 60, as it's called.
Just this month,
So this is actually happening now.
And that brings us to the close of today's episode.
We look forward to having you join up again for the next edition of the Nikkei Asia News Roundup. We are taking a short break, and we'll be back on May 16th.
Stay informed, stay curious. Until next time, I'm Jada.
And I'm Brian. See you again, and take care. This program is brought to you by Nikkei.